Hi, welcome back to Built It in Blue Jeans, and we're here this morning with Traci Cliffman and Kitchen Essentials. And so our story is small town entrepreneurship, small business owners. And Traci, I'll let you kind of tell us a little more. What did you do before all this?
Before we opened the store, I taught school for 19 years, and I was just ready for a career change. I just personally wasn't feeling fulfilled, and I wanted for quite a while to open a business in Nevada. And I love to cook, and that's where my family spend a lot of the time, is in the kitchen and around the table. And so we were discussing it, tossing it back and forth, because I was ready to make that change. And kind of through a friend, I had found that the building that we have our store in was available to purchase from a private individual. So we tossed it around some more and decided to invest in the building and start our business.
What was the hardest decision in actually making that jump from a steady paycheck for the last 2 decades plus? What was that jumping off point like?
That part right there, going from a steady paycheck to the unknown.
Yeah.
The first year that we opened, we got possession of the building in April,
Okay.
and I had already signed my contract for the next year. So the first year, I taught, and the business was open. So
Okay.
we got possession of the building in April, did all of our remodel, and we opened on August 1st. And then I went back to school on August 15th.
Okay. What year was that?
In 2014.
Okay.
And
that wasn't both sides here,
No,
which
that
from the
was
camera
just,
you can't see that.
You're right, that was just the initial side, the
Okay.
first side. And so the first year I would teach, and then as soon as school was out, I would come here till about 6 o'clock in the evening, 6:30. And it actually, things kind of just fell into place, because our son was in Crowder, so he could work here, our daughter could work here some, and then my mom. And so then I would come here when I got off of school. So it all just kind of fell into place that first year, but let me tell you, that was an exhausting first year.
It was a lot of double duty.
It was a
wasn't
lot of double
it?
duty.
A lot of family
Yes.
help and
Yes, that wouldn't have been successful if it wasn't for them. Yes.
yeah. So and your husband, what?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
He's, I can have the ideas and he can make them happen. He's just very good at, like I said, me coming up with it. I know what I want, I know what I can see, but he's the one who can actually make that happen. And like you said, when we were discussing, there was a lot of discussion. It is hard to give up a paycheck of, I was pretty, I had a lot of extra additional education. I had taught for a long time. So, I was doing pretty well on the pay scale. And so, like he said, you've got to wake up every morning being happy with what you're doing, because you only get one shot at life. Mm-hmm. And I think that was kind of his final words when we were hashing that back and forth, is pretty well what made me make the final decision. This is what I want to do. And I have to admit, in the back of my mind, I knew if this didn't work, I could go back into education.
Yeah. What was one of the, if someone was to give you some advice on that very first starting out, what that was like versus where you're at now? What was the biggest, because like in business, you go bookkeeping, inventory, all those kind of things, some marketing. What was one of the biggest things that maybe you had to learn starting out?
One of the things, and I would say Greg and I are pretty conscious of the things of how we do things. When we first opened the store, like purchasing inventory, we didn't go out and purchase a ton of inventory. We had a budget for what we wanted to buy, and that's what we spent. And we had to spread that merchandise out to fill our store area, to make it look like it was full, by the way we set up displays, by the way that we hung items up on the walls or throughout the store. That was our first step. I think it would be easy if you think you're going to go into this and, buy a ton of merchandise and inventory to sell, and you're going to hire 2 or 3 employees. It doesn't work that way. Yes, I had to do that my first year, but I also had my income from teaching to supplement salaries and so forth. But if you really want your business to be successful, you have to budget, what you're going to spend, and be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
and you are going to have to give 110% of your personal time.
So a lot of sweat equity.
A lot of sweat equity, absolutely.
Considering from our background in farming.
Exactly.
It's very similar,
yes,
I
it
assume.
is.
How did you decide, or do you see your different products selling? Say, we've tried your jellies and cream cheese. I'm kind of a sucker for those, obviously. But versus, say, some utensils, or do you shift inventory? Hey, this is selling a little more versus that, or what are some of your decision?
We do. I'm pretty good about moving things in and out, that if they're not moving well, then they usually get moved out,
Mm-hmm.
and then I bring in something else. I try, to keep a good flow of rotation of items, because that's what the sellers want to see, or the buyers want to see, not the sellers.
When did you decide to do this second edition here?
Like I said, when we first opened the business, we bought inventory and spread it all out to fill the space. And then as we grew, I was trying to find space for the inventory that I was buying. And we felt it was being successful with what we were doing. And so Greg and I talked about it and decided to visit with the gentleman who had this side.
Okay.
And we just, made him an offer and came to an agreement, and we expanded twice the size.
And what year was it?
That was in 17, I believe.
Ago?
Yeah, 17.
Yeah.
It was not the year I thought it was when we were talking about it a while back. This would be our third Christmas this past one here.
Okay.
So it was in 17, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was thinking something there. Where do you find your niche in the online world that we live in? Where do you position yourself with that?
We do. I have a website, but we do not do online sales. I've played around with it, but the hardest trouble that I have is with shipping costs.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I may have one item that's the same size as another item, and one may weigh 5 pounds and one may not even weigh a pound. So that's what's kind of held me back as far as that. I will tell you that Facebook has done a fabulous job. People will see things on there,
Mm-hmm.
and they will call and ask me about those. Or we've actually started about a year and a half ago advertising on TV, and that has been a big, that was a good investment. When it came time that we could afford to do that, I was glad we did that.
Yeah. Do you do any radio, or mostly the TV?
I do some radio, mostly local,
Okay.
and some local advertising in the newspaper, but it's a little more sporadic at this time, because I've decided I felt we had kind of saturated this area locally with what we had, so I wanted to expand out.
Okay.
And so that's why we decided to invest our money in TV, and it actually has been very successful.
Mm-hmm. I like to shop locally more from the service side of things. The pan we
Right.
bought it's been shared a lot on Facebook recently.
Yes.
That is our favorite pan. We need a bigger one, by the way. The boys are starting to we rolled through a lot of pancakes this morning, didn't we? So, anyways, with that, where do you see, do you see that a lot of people coming in and maybe looking for something different, or looking for some advice on the right tool, or?
There are people that come in and ask for certain specialty items,
Mm-hmm.
and like I just ordered a certain special pan for a gentleman the other day, and I really have to say, I think the local people in our surrounding communities as well have been very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think they want to see small businesses survive and to be here. You just, and a lot of them do like that one-on-one special service. And like I said, we try really hard, and this is one of the things that you have to keep in mind, is that we try really hard to be competitive with the prices that you can find online.
Mm-hmm.
Because you really don't have a choice.
Yeah. Do you think that people? So obviously, Taylor and I have grown up in the era of shopping online for the most part.
And that's different for us. Yes.
Yeah, you and my mom would probably not have grown up in that. So, if it's really something that we want, I feel like, more quality and those kind of things, we like to shop local, hands down. And I'm glad to see things like this almost coming back, maybe
Right.
more of the Make America Great Again type of, actually supporting things locally. Even though there's still a lot of people our age, I guess, that shop online, but I enjoy this. We just moved into our new house, and so this is high on our list of maybe restocking some things and going that route. So with everything that's going on with the coronavirus and the pandemic, and obviously we're keeping a fair social distance here, but what has been what's a struggle? How are you working around what we're dealing with?
Well, it's definitely been a struggle because we don't, like I said, we don't have online sales website per se. But, like you said, the discussion with the pans that was on Facebook, that produced a lot of sales for us. And so what we're doing is we're not open to the public at this time, but we are open for curbside pickup from 4 to 5. So people have either called me or messaged me, or emailed me and asked about items, and then they either pay over the phone, or I then send them a message and tell them the total, and they have cash or check ready, and then we bring it out to their car when they pull up.
Okay, well, that seems to be a pretty good
workaround. Yeah,
just
trying to make the best of the situation and still try to, the thing is, you still have got to try to make an income during this time. However we can do it, because small businesses rely, it's hard to bounce back.
Yeah. What would you say is maybe some of your biggest worry between the different types of businesses? So you said 14 full-time and 15 when you made the transition to full-time here?
Yes.
So we're looking at 5 years now?
Yes.
So still, not new, but new compared to maybe some other multi-generational businesses. Or do you see those as any of a hurdle for a lot of people? I know restaurants, the town next door has done a lockdown. I think restaurants would be in a pretty tight position right now with that. Any thoughts or?
I still think you have to do what you can. You want to provide safety for the community, but like I said, it is very hard for a small business to completely shut its doors. This is for some of their sole income. And you can't sit on your inventory and have nothing moving, even though we're in this crisis situation right now. So I applaud them for trying to be creative and come up with ideas, kind of like we did. And I think next week I've decided that I'm going to be here every morning and offer the same opportunity for curbside in the morning as well, and then in the afternoon as well, hoping that we can pick up a few more people. It's just, we have to come up with what's going to work without completely shutting our doors.
I would say that is something here. If you look around, you've got a fair amount of inventory in here and a lot of variety.
Yes.
I kind of like those cups there. Anything you want to spotlight on them, or anything new that you have come in lately that's?
Well, we've kind of halted our new.
Yeah.
Well, I say that, but then I did actually order a new. Okay, our ballerini, obviously, cookware is a very big hit.
Okay.
Those
That's
are
the
amazing.
pan,
Those are the pan. Yep,
those
are amazing.
They're kind of the deal.
They
they're
are.
Neat.
And then we have the Fiesta ware, which is very popular with people. And then, people just like certain gadgets, certain bakeware. There was a discussion, actually, I think it was your stepmom that was talking about the USA pans yesterday on Facebook as well, and we carry those. And
she does a pretty fair job on the baking.
Yes.
I definitely speak to that, I guess. So.
Yes. And we did actually. I do have a new line, stainless steel cookware, that is coming in that I've done some research on. One of the things, going back to somebody in a small business, I do research on the items that I order. I check out the reviews, and one of the things that we decided when we were going to do this was, if we wouldn't pay that price for something, then number one, we either won't have it in the store, or that's the price that it's going to be marked. So, usually in retail, 2.2% is what markup is.
Okay.
I very rarely do that.
Okay.
Because I want it to be something that our community can afford. And like I said, if I wouldn't pay that for it, and I'm just the middle of the road average person, then I wouldn't really I wouldn't price it or
This,
have it.
this is a lot of things to do research on.
It is. I do not order like the new stainless steel cookware. I looked at 2 or 3 lines and I looked at cost. And then I do a lot of research on especially things like that, what people are going to invest their money in, because nobody wants to come in and buy something, you know, at a price point that is, you know, not worthy of what you paid for it. I mean that, and so I do a lot of research on what I pull in.
Well, that's really good, and I guess that's part of the service.
That is part of it.
Come into the local service. Any other pointers as far as small business goes? From a discussion we had the other day, we do have some more people lined up to do interviews like this with. One of them was on the financing end. The whole back end of the business. You can be a great carpenter, for example. You could be a great cook, but then when it comes to the business side of running all that, billing, those kind of things, which billing, I guess you're more of the public versus I do a B2B type of business. But what does that look like, starting up front? I'm assuming there's a lot of cash outlay, your sweat equity, those kind of things.
Yes.
What do you have any advice for someone starting more of a retail, like what you're doing, when it comes to having the right banking, credit card processing, all those processes?
And that is, that was the thing that you have to look at. You can't jump in to this if you're going to do retail and make yourself so far in debt when you first start that you can't dig yourself out for years. You really have to set your budget and look at it. Is it beneficial for you to invest or to rent? For us, investing is more of how we do business. That's just even from our, from agriculture point of view. Don't invest so much in inventory that you can't dig yourself out of it. Set your budget to start with and then grow from there. And other things that you have to consider is, you have utilities, you have advertisement, and honestly, you're going to be hit up a ton for donations. And you try to do the best you can, but there does come a time when you have to say no. And then you have to decide, are you going to pull a salary? That doesn't always happen.
Our sweat equity conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That doesn't always happen. So you really have to take a look at the whole picture, not just at the current, but you have to look at down the road as well. And another thing that I know is it's kind of ironic, but you collect sales tax, but you only pay sales tax quarterly. So your account looks good because you've collected that sales tax, but then you've got to remember, I've got to pay that back. After the quarter's over. Yeah. So, there's those little things that, yes, you collected it, but you don't seem to always remember that when you're...
I know some people that they split that off into a separate account. Is that anything?
I
just
do
keep track
not.
of it?
I do not. But that's another thing. If I look at our budget, I look at our bank account, and, I see where I'm at. And if I'm not at a point where I can order new merchandise or even resupply something at the time, then I don't. That's just, you can't, just because one person comes in and asks for something and you're out of stock, that doesn't mean you can go place a $500 order to get that one item back in real quickly for that person. I mean, you hate to lose that sale, but you have to justify, because a lot of companies, you have to order a minimum.
Okay.
You can't, it's not.
You don't just go, I need one of these pans,
Right, it doesn't work that way. And then you have shipping to include into that.
Yeah.
And some companies let you do a, like a 30-day and then you can pay it off. We don't do that. That's not how, we're full credit card pay.
Okay.
That way I know where I'm at, because it's so easy to forget that you have that coming due in 60 days.
Yeah.
And then you get the bill and you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
I forgot about that one. Or, oh, wow, I forgot about this one. And that we're that way when we go to market. We go to market every year to look at new inventory, but we do not go to market and spend a ton of money. We look, and there might be a few things that absolutely, because it would be so easy to come home and go, oh my, I just spent thousands of dollars and I have no idea I did that.
So really starting out, having a high cash position, being willing to put in the sweat equity and gain it down the road, and It sounds like really staying out of, I know a lot of people, maybe some credit cards are not the good thing when you're starting out in a retail, high percentage interest, just a lot of things for maybe if you're watching this to realize the hurdles that come up in starting a business and the cash burn, I guess you can say, of starting out. You may not make a profit for 2, 3, 4 months.
Or I mean,
a year.
It could be a year. It depends on, that's why you watch how much you go into it.
Mm-hmm.
You just cannot invest everything, and I mean, you've got to gradually grow. That's why I said when we first started, we spread the merchandise out to make the store look full, because that's how you're going to have to start.
When I guess I'd say share with my entrepreneur journey. I've worked a lot of jobs, always kind of worked a secondary job for a lot of years, but it really started my business when I was 20. Versus you're talking about starting your business at
older
than 20.
Only a little bit.
Only a little older than 20.
Just a little.
Do you think that prepared you a lot more for entrepreneurship, or just maybe in a different way?
I think it was probably just in a different way. Nothing against starting it at 20,
but I wouldn't recommend
it. At our age, and we did, ag is our other, that's what my husband does as well. So, budgeting and things like that were just part of our nature anyway. Because in the ag world, you're not always drawing a paycheck every month either.
Yeah.
And so I think that helped a lot, just the life experiences that we'd already had.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that definitely helped a lot.
I know a lot of the entrepreneurs that we're going to, and small business owners that we're going to interview, a lot of them started probably not much older than I am now, at 30, 31,
And it's hard to come up with the money that you need at a younger age. You don't have that credit history per se, maybe with the bank or whatever.
Mm-hmm. So and that's probably something else, is a very strong relationship, given the fact you already have a business with your husband.
Right.
Going into something like this, fostering those relationships, and for me, in the last couple of years, would say where we really started to have a relationship with a bank, not just we need to borrow some money, you go in and they're pretty small, realizing how important that is for when things get leaner, or understanding where you're going. Which I'm really looking forward to some of those interviews and things that we've got lined up down the road. Anyway, would you mind doing a small, maybe we switch rooms and maybe talk about a couple products and show the rest of the store real quick?
Sure.
And, anyway.
Sure.
Ready?